Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizer Darris, and I was a one-time appointee to the State Board of Public Defense by Governor Walz in 2020. I served for a couple years, and it was an absolute honor to serve. As someone who is deeply committed to justice and equity, I've seen firsthand the critical role that public defense plays in ensuring fair representation. So tonight we're going to be discussing the investments made and the challenges ahead and why funding this work is essential for a just system. And we are joined by a really outstanding panel of individuals. It's going to represent a 360 view of our system of public defense. This includes public defenders, this includes board members, this includes line staff members, this includes those who are working on behalf of us at the legislature, both from a lobbying perspective and as an elected capacity as well. And so we have a really wide 360 view of our system of public defense. And we have some of the best and the brightest minds online right now that I think are going to really allow us to peek into what is going to be a really robust discussion. And so I'm going to now open it up to those who are going to be part of this panel, this really esteemed panel. I'm going to actually start, and then we're going to popcorn from there. But I'm going to actually start with Representative Frazier. The question that we're asking everyone is, who are you? What do you do? And why do you love the work that you're doing? And then from there, we're just going to go to each of the other panelists. We're going to try to keep this first answer for about 30 seconds. But who are you? What are you doing? Why do you love the work that you're doing? Representative Frazier.
Thanks. I'm Cedrick Frazier. I represent District 43A, which is cities of Crystal and New Hope up in the northwest suburbs. I guess in this capacity, I'm a state legislator. I love what I do because I get to help people. I mean, my job is to problem solve. I do it in my foundational career, which is an attorney. But as a legislator, it's even more impactful because I get to do it for the entire state of Minnesota.
Oh, you're muted.
Outstanding. Board member Alfreda Daniels.
Thank you, Alfreda Daniels. And in this capacity, I am a current board member of the Minnesota State Board of Public Defense, Public Defenders. I love what I do because I come from a background of organizing, and I really enjoy serving the community. And in this capacity, I get to, along with my colleagues, serve the community through advocating for what's best for our public defenders.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Laurel.
Hi there. Laurel O'Rourke. I am an assistant public defender in Washington County, Minnesota. I've been doing this job in this capacity for about 13 years. This job is just my heart. The best part about it is really just helping my clients navigate through a difficult situation. It's a really kind of intimate role and yet intellectually challenging, but it also just allows me to really be myself. And by being myself, I'm able to just show up for them in the best way possible. It's a pretty unique and special privilege. Thanks.
Fantastic. Andrea.
Good evening. I'm Andrea Anderson. I'm a paralegal in the 4th District, which is Hennepin County. I love the work that I do because I get to learn something new every day, and also help clients through helping the attorneys, and that's always fun.
Fantastic. Donovan.
Donovan Bailey, dispositional advisor, social worker with the public defender. Been here almost 18 years in and out of Minnesota public defender. And what I love about this work, and it's hard to nail down one thing, but in this current time where it seems like our democracy is being challenged, I'm very excited about this work because it is a piece of the American dream, because we seek to give criminal defense to the impoverished or those that cannot afford representation. And when you think of the depth of that, and given what we're seeing with billionaires doing this, that, and the other. We uphold some of the great concepts of America just by representing folks and giving them an opportunity at defense that beyond their means, they wouldn't normally have the opportunity to do that.
Thank you so much. Edward, last but certainly not least.
Thank you, Eli. First of all, thank you for having me today, and appreciate everybody participating today, and good evening to everybody. My name is Edward Reynoso. I'm the Political and Legislative Affairs Director for Teamsters Local 320. I'm your lobbyist at the Capitol, and what I love best about my job is changing people's lives when it comes to money, when it comes to workers' rights, when it comes to rights on the job, right? So at the end of the day, I've done it for a long time. I do a lot of work with Cedrick and many other partners throughout the legislature, and I enjoy what I do and I believe in what I do.
Thank you so much. And as I told you all, we have a really esteemed panel, as you've been able to see. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about the current state of our system of public defense and what an outstanding future state would look like. I want to begin by asking you a question, Representative Frazier. What are the biggest obstacles preventing further investment in public defense? And what can advocates do to help move the needle in the legislature?
Thank you, Eli. You know, can you all hear me good?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. You know, one of the big things we did the last 2 years, we made a heavy investment, a historic investment, an investment that we should have made a long time ago in public defense to bring some parity between public defenders and prosecutors around the state. As many folks know, county systems are funded through the counties. State public defenders are funded statewide. It used to be county by county for public defenders. I remember when I came in as a public defender, as a young lawyer, we had our county funded folks, and then we had our state funded folks, and there was quite disparities between the way those individual salaries were in place and what they made. We made a heavy investment in the last biennium to really bring people up to par, which I think was great. We've got more people going into public defense. We've got people staying, so that's a great tool. What we're facing now, to get to your point around the biggest barrier, we are looking at a deficit coming up in the next 2 years. And so that's what we're facing is how do we address and continue to keep the balance to keep up and maintain that parity? Because when we made the investment, now we're seeing counties, as bargaining times coming around, they're starting to invest more, and we're starting to see the disparity grow again between the prosecutors and public defenders. So our biggest challenge is going to be with looming deficits coming up, and we've got a new forecast coming in March, so we'll know a little bit more in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But it's going to be how do we balance things out to maintain that parity, but at the same time deal with other priorities that we face as a state. And at the same time, try to keep the parity that we want to keep so that we can maintain, retain, and recruit public defenders into that work. And I think the brother Donovan Bailey mentioned the most. I mean, this in a moment like this, at a time like this, we're facing our country, this is a really critical piece of our justice system infrastructures to maintain and ensure that we have great public defenders in our system, and that we maintain those folks and keep those folks working right, and we pay them well, and we pay them what they deserve and what they should have for the work that they do.
You know, Representative Frazier, you've used a term. I know that we all are familiar with what this term is, because, we've been in this line of work. But there are some community members right now that may just be at a complete loss as to, what do you mean by parity? I know what we know what it means,
Yeah.
generally speaking. But in this particular regard, what does parity mean?
So parity means what we were trying to say. So we've got prosecutors, and then we've got our public defenders. We've got prosecutors that have a certain caseload. Our public defenders have a certain caseload. They both have very high caseloads. But what we've had historically is a discrepancy and a disparity in terms of what those prosecutors were getting paid for the work that they do versus what the public defenders get paid for the work that they do. And what I have to focus in on is that prosecutors, there is some discretion there in terms of how they charge those cases. Public defenders, we have to take the cases that come in if the individual qualifies. So we don't have a lot of discretion in terms of turning away individuals when those folks qualify, which is an important thing because we want to make sure that individuals have equal access and equal representation in our justice, in our system. So the parity, what I say by parity is making sure we kind of equalize and have on par what the prosecutors make versus what the public defenders make. And for historically, what we've had is an imbalance in those salaries and what those folks make. So we're trying to make sure we can keep those things balanced as we move forward. And we made a large investment the last biennium and the legislative. When I say biennium, I'm talking about the last 2 years in the legislative session. We made a large investment in the last biennium. We're going to try now to keep up because as we know, as we move on, you think about cost of living and inflation and things like that. We want to make sure that we can stay on par and maintain that equal balance between prosecutors and public defenders.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think a lot of people will be really surprised to learn the pay difference between the two. And so I really do appreciate you casting more illumination on that point. Laurel, I want to go to you for a second because, we're talking about people who are the recipient of the services that our system of public defense renders. But right now, I feel like we're at a 15 or 20,000 foot level. I kind of want to bring this down a little bit more, and I want you to do some work in helping to humanize who we're talking about. Can you give us a snapshot of the clients? I'm actually going to combine two of the questions that I have for you. Can you give us a snapshot of the clients that you serve daily? Who are they? The challenges they face? And what brings them into the system of public defense? And what types of charges are we talking about that you're typically facing? And in terms of their complexity and the resource requirements for those more complex cases. Can you do a little bit of work in humanizing your clients and also helping us understand how complex those cases are and what the resource needs may be for those complex cases?
Absolutely. I work in Washington County, so we're a large county just outside the metropolitan area, so just kind of second ring suburbs, I'd say. And I handle felonies here. So those are cases over 364 days where somebody could be looking at potentially going to prison. And that may sound like those are people who are really dangerous, but often it's people who look just like another member of your family. My clients tend to be young, but not always. And they often have young families. And they're struggling. Sometimes it's a mental health concern. Sometimes, and often there's some addiction or drug use that's brought them into the system, and they're just in a place in their life where they have kind of lost some agency and control over a situation. Oftentimes, it's possession charges. It's maybe thefts over a certain dollar amount, and or some family violence, or occasionally I'll have cases that are violent that involve just other members of the community. Typically, though, these crimes that I'm dealing with are crimes where the main victim is really my client, more than anyone else. But certainly, other people can be involved in those. So
I want you to talk to us a little bit about the humanity of the people that you serve as well. What have your what have your observations been from a relational lens? Just help us understand, who are we talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, they're often, when they meet me, they're feeling really bad about themselves. They're ashamed, and they're ready and gearing up to be treated like they're a nobody, or that they're stupid, or that they're a bad person. And so the first thing that I'm doing when I'm meeting my clients is working very hard to let them feel like I'm treating them just the same way I treat anyone else, and getting some sort of level of comfort with them, so that they're not as scared. They don't know me from Adam, and they don't have any reason to necessarily trust me, especially within the public defender system, because we do have such a, a reputation just on a national level of calling us public pretenders. And boy, do I get buy-in fast, and we have such a wonderful, robust system in this state. One of the things that I think about often is when I was a law student, I worked at the Innocence Project. I clerked there, and I was also clerking at the public defender's office as well. And the case that I handled was Marvin Haynes. This was several years ago, 2010, I started there. And I would go and meet with Marvin at the prison. He was 23 years old at the time. And it was clear that he had been wrongfully convicted. And it was also clear that his lawyer, who was a good lawyer, just was a private attorney and did not have the same resources he would have had if he had been working within the public defender system. I think that if that case had been handled by our system, that hopefully there would have been an investigator on that immediately. There would have been a paralegal. There would have been other people who had been working with that attorney to make sure that Marvin was having his case looked at from several different angles, so that we could make sure that his alibi was in place by getting videos from out in the community. He didn't have access to that. And I don't know if anyone has seen that case, but it's been all over the news recently, because we all got to greet Marvin when he was released after being exonerated last year at the end of December in 2023. And the ramifications of that, and I spend a lot of time with him, just reverberate throughout his life and his family's life. And I look at that, and it has sat in my stomach like an electric wire since 2010. I think about it all the time. The other thing that I think about as a public defender is starting out as a very young lawyer, doing an arraignment calendar with a young man whose son was waiting at home for him, and he gets picked up on a driving, just a small driving offense, but it was going to lead to much bigger consequences for him because of some other things. And he's crying, and he's wearing handcuffs, and he's trying to wipe his nose with handcuffs, right, with his sleeves. And he said to me, weeping, ashamed, disappointed in himself, and very afraid, "Please promise me you'll do your best for me today." And I think about that every day that I'm in court with my clients. Please promise me you'll do your best for me today. And our job in this system, even if they're not saying that, is to make sure that we're doing that for them by reviewing all of the evidence. And my God, there's a lot more than there used to be. And that we're making sure we're up to date on all of our case law, and that we're really listening to what they're saying, because they are afraid, and they don't even know necessarily whether or not their attorney's doing a good job for them. They're not going to know. So it's really on us. It's imperative, and it's constitutionally mandated that we do it.
Yep. And thank you so much for that. It's never lost on me that, somehow, people look at certain defendants and the constitutional protections that they're supposed to be enshrined with somehow goes out of the window. Whereas we're supposed to see people as innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. And the work that you all do as public defenders are the last line of defense that could stop a democracy from spiraling into something significantly worse. You name the form of government, and without us protecting the most precious right among us, and that is liberty, we would lose everything. Donovan, I want you to stay within this thread of really working to humanize. Who are we talking about? Now, you said that you are a dispositional advisor. What the heck is a dispositional advisor? Please illuminate us as to what you do and why it is critical to our system of public defense.
Thank you, Elizer. And that is a question I often get not only outside of our office, but sometimes within our office. I'm going to steal a quote to kind of explain, and I've said this before, from Robin Steinberg. Some say that she was the foremother of the idea of holistic defense out of the Bronx Defenders. She said of public defenders that we are a crime fighting force. And when I heard her say that and quoted that, I was like, wow. And when you think about what we do, and it's going to dovetail into what I do, we help keep the streets safe. Now, I know that when we look at the news or we look at obviously all of the TV shows, the defense attorney and all that stuff, the public pretender doesn't get that type of mentality. But when it comes to a true public defender, and Laurel kind of alluded to this, we help keep the community safe by looking holistically at the client and meeting their needs, certainly within a criminal defense mindset. And I, as a social worker or dispositional advisor, and there's another term for it called mitigation specialist, my whole goal is to find out, okay, in the sense of providing criminal defense, all those different things we think of when it comes to traditional criminal defense, I am, as a dispositional advisor or social worker, trying to find alternatives to prison, alternatives to punitive measures that we know don't work. Prison, when we think of recidivism, when we think of a lot of things as it relates to the criminal justice system, going all the way back to Floyd and some of the social justice things, what we do is help the system look deeper at the client. Say, for instance, the chemical dependency issue. A client gets in trouble or allegedly gets in trouble. We find out, hey, potentially, hey, there was a chemical dependency issue. If we address the chemical dependency issue, we address the behavior. That can go into mental health. That can go into some more holistic things as it relates to the client, how they grew up, some of the circumstances around their lives. So our goal is to find out those deeper elements of the client, how it connects to some behavior, and then help the court understand an alternative to prison or even a lesser sentence is a better public safety outcome. And I did say that, rather than locking them up, because we know that doesn't work. So as a dispositional advisor, I call us the heart of the public defense. We help the lawyers in the criminal defense system see the whole of the client and find out truly what's going to change behavior and help even the court's idea of public safety.
Yeah, that's really, really critical. I'm going to still stay within this vein because what I'm trying to do is cast more light on the day-to-day functions and the day-to-day operations of an office of public defense. And so, Andrea, I'm going to come to you next. Yeah, can you share a specific example of how support staff significantly impacted a case's outcome, demonstrating why additional funding for, making sure that we have a robust support staff is absolutely crucial. Can you help us understand, we were at a 15,000 foot level. We came to a 5,000 foot level. Can you bring it down to the 100-foot level and give us an example of how crucial your work is in making sure we have great case outcomes?
Sure. So as support staff, our work enables us to provide client-centered representation in the best way possible. It's imperative that we have a team. It's not just the attorney doing the work, but we have a team of support and professionals to help get the best possible outcomes for our clients as possible. We also help the attorneys fight for our clients' rights so that their rights are protected throughout the whole case. Even in cases where our clients plead guilty or decide to plead guilty, we ensure that we're doing everything within our power to make sure that they get the best outcome. And just having a team with them, I think, instills confidence in the clients that they are getting appropriate representation. I have an example. There was a dispositional advisor, and she was working with a client that had a developmental disability. She was able to help get his disability. She helped to explain it to the court in such a way that he was able to get the case dismissed instead of spending time going through the Rule 20 every 6 months being kind of strung along, he was able to get a better resolution and not have to serve that time.
Yeah, that is really, really phenomenal. Now I'm gonna kind of flare back out. I'm gonna flare back out because we have several of you who are doing really, really, really great level at the state level, as it relates to making sure that we have a robust system. And so I'm going to come to you. Actually, I recognize that we have a short amount of time with Representative Frazier, and so I want to pause there, and I'm going to come right back to you, Board Member Daniels. But due to time, and I just want to get this final question in with the representative. We're going to go to you next. And the question is around, I'm going to combine several of your questions, and it's around what legislative efforts are currently underfoot. Why does any of this matter to you as a legislature? Why does it matter? Why should it matter to the people who are watching this? Why should it matter to the community? Why should it matter to the legislature? Why does any of this matter? And what legislative efforts are afoot in order to bolster up our system of public defense?
So yeah, thanks for that question. And just real quick, what the question before about bringing things back and just thinking about the humanity of the people that are being served by public defenders. And I think that's one of the main things. When I was a public defender, what I often saw. Now I grew up on the south side of Chicago, so for me, in Hennepin County, when I was practicing, you would see that most of my clients, they look just like me. Right? They had similar lived experiences. So for me, it was always for me, I saw myself, I saw my cousins, my nephews, my uncles, my brother. I saw that. So I always knew every day going in that I am the thing that stands between this system that doesn't always see someone as a human and provide that humanity unless they are at a certain socioeconomic status. And it was always my job to ensure that you're going to treat them with the humanity they deserve, regardless if they're coming in with a bank account, with a large bank account, or a large funded defense team. And Laurel kind of touched on that piece, right? That's one of the most important things to me. This is a constitutional right to have this representation. And with it being a constitutional right, it shouldn't matter what your socioeconomic status is, or what your background is, or what your race is, what your gender is. None of that should matter. The only thing that should matter is that you're coming into the system. You are now a consumer when you come into the system, and we should treat you with the same amount of equality and with the same amount of decency and humanity that we treat everyone with. And so for me, the whole point of this is the reason we have to ensure that we have a system that does that, because if it doesn't do it for the individuals that are considered to have the least, then the whole thing falls apart. And that's the most important thing. So I wanted to make sure I shared that piece, because I know I got to run here in a little bit, but I wanted to make sure I shared that piece. And so a large part of what we're doing in the legislature, and I have to say this, because Chair Jamie Becker-Finn, who was the chair of the Judiciary Committee when we made the historic investment, she would always say that this is a constitutional right, and we have to fund it like it is a constitutional right, right? We fund everything else that we have to do, that the Constitution requires us to do. This is also something that we must fund because it is a constitutional right. We shouldn't take shortcuts. We shouldn't say, this is not a priority this time. We have to do that because, back to what you said earlier, Eli, it is about liberty. And if we don't protect that for the least of us, it won't matter at all. The system falls apart if we don't protect that for the least of us. So that is my focus as a legislator, and that is what we are trying to do. Like I said, it's going to be some struggles because we've got a looming deficit coming up. We'll know more when the forecast comes. But the whole focus is to ensure that this thing that is a constitutional right, we are providing the funding that is necessary to ensure that everybody gets treated with decency and humanity when they come through our justice system.
Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for that, Representative Frazier. And for the purposes of the audience, you all can drop questions into the chat. I'll sort through those questions and I'll ask those questions to the panelists as well. So Q&A is most certainly possible. I do want to turn to you, board member Daniels. From your own perspective, what are the most pressing issues facing public defenders and support staff? And how is the board addressing these things that you've identified as being pressing? What do you consider pressing, and how's the board going about resolving those?
Thank you. So,
And
my role.
maybe also tell us a little bit about the State Board of Public Defense, just for those in the audience that may not necessarily know. Maybe a quick snapshot of what is the State Board of Public Defense. Then tell us, how you are engaging on the board.
Yeah. So the Board of Public Defense, we are mostly appointed. I know I was appointed by the governor, Governor Watts. I think it's been a year already, actually. And we go through, we do advocate for resources, policies, and try to uphold rules and regulations for our public defenders and appoint, our chiefs and amongst many others. So basically, like you have any other organization, this is, the board that actually make these different rules and regulations, determining pay and other things for our public defenders as well. Being the newest member on the Board of Public Defense and with my background in community organizing, I do not take this opportunity lightly. Because most people that use our public defenders look like me, look like the community that I represent, and could easily be any member of my family and community, and has been in the past. And historically, the only story that I have heard is the stories of people that are receiving the services, and it has not been good. So what people see compared to what I'm seeing right now is they meet their public defenders, and that person is rushing through with them to hurry up and get to the next case, and they don't feel heard or listened to, or they didn't feel like their case was important. Being on the board, I'm seeing now and connecting with public defenders and hearing their frustration of, we really take pride in the work that we do. We want to do our work. We have a huge workload. It's not an issue of caseload, but workload. And sometimes the first time they're meeting their clients, it's that Monday morning. And they're supposed to know everything about this person that they're about to represent. So coming from these two backgrounds, I think the role of the public defenders, some of the present issues that we're having is, how do we connect with our public defenders? I think from my perspective, one of the things that is lacking, and it's no fault of anyone, and I think most of my colleagues are really trying to bridge this gap, is connecting directly with public defenders. I think as we advocate, we need to listen directly from public defenders. What are your challenges before we present these issues? We can sit back and say, hey, we need to lessen the caseload. And they're saying caseload is not our issue. Workload is our issue, right? And we're saying we got to go up and advocate for X, Y, and Z. Well, and they're saying, no, this is not what we need. This is our need. So it's, how do we connect with public defenders and hear them? And also when we're going to the legislature, how are we also making sure we're going in there with not just the public defenders, but the community that are receiving the services? Because I also think their voices are important. Right? If public defenders are saying this is our need, this is how we're going to get our work done, and then the community is saying this is the lack that I'm seeing, public defenders are not representing me, they're not taking the time to know me or my case, I think it's easier for our legislature to look and say, okay, yeah, this is the issue. This is the reason why they don't have the time, because the resources that they need is lacking here. And this is what our public defenders need. And so I think the issue for my colleagues and I is stepping back and saying, we don't have all the answers. We really need to form this relationship and connect with our public defenders and have them lead and listen to them, and then craft our ask and our advocate and whatever we're advocating for around the needs of our public defenders and our community at large. And another thing too, I think we are not present within the community that we serve. And this is one of the challenge that I believe during our last meeting, our board, my colleagues and I agreed upon and thought that it's very necessary for us to have a robust and intentional community engagement department with, for the public defenders. We need to be present in the community. We need to host town halls, and people need to know the work that we do and why we do what we do, and the funding that's involved. People need to know us, not just our public defenders, the moment that they're in crisis. But how do we bridge that gap so they know who we are? Like the county attorney office does that. They're out in the community all the time. I think it's about time we step up and be intentional about our community engagement. That's actually going to make the job of our public defender easier if we're out there in the community as well.
Yeah, so that's really good to hear that the board, intends to really, get out into the community more and engage more with the line staff of the public defenders. It's really refreshing to hear that. I recall that when I was a board member and I visited some of the sites, many had told me that they had not had a board member come there in years. So I was like, huh? It was really surprising to me. And so it's really refreshing to hear that. And as someone who previously worked with the ACLU, I was really the public defenders have always been one of the greatest partners that we've always had, and many of the engagements that we would do, if we were doing Warrant Forgiveness Day, to be able to partner with the public defenders to be able to push something like that was really, really phenomenal. And so thank you, Board Member Daniels, for that. I'm going to go to you now, Edward. Someone who is at the legislature with members like Representative Frazier and others. Can you tell us what are the biggest challenges in securing legislative support for increased funding in public defense, and how can labor unions, like the Teamsters, for instance, how can you all help and advocate for these types of efforts?
That's a great question, Elizer, and I think there's many ways, but let me start by saying I think one of the most important things is partnerships. I want to thank Representative Frazier for some of the things that the conversations that we've had throughout the years, whether it was parity. I mean, how many conversations, Cedrick, do we have about parity? Tons, right? Numerous ones. How many conversations did we have about issues that were coming up, like the conversation we had pertaining to the seat that Alfreda Daniels sits on, how we needed to have a bigger voice and a bigger print on decisions that are made by an advocate, by somebody that understands the hard-ass work that these public defenders do. And so, it's about those partnerships, Elizer, that make the difference. Elizer, you played a role in getting that bill passed also, in testifying in support of expanding the Board of Public Defense. It's things like that and strategies that we need to think of sometimes out of the box to get things done. But it's the partnerships. It's the long-term partnerships from both sides of the aisle, mind you, especially right now that we really have a divided government in both chambers. It's really, really tight margins. So we have to make sure that we reach across those aisles. And not that we haven't already, because I think the other thing that Representative Frazier could attest to is the conversations that we had when we were able to pass a unanimous Board of Public Defense budget on the House floor. I mean, Cedrick, how many other bills were passed unanimously? And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens by engaging, partnership, and making sure that we have the right topic of conversation and we're delivering the right words and message to these legislators. The obstacle we're going to have, there's no question, and Cedrick's already mentioned it, is we may have an obstacle when it comes to money. But we need to continue to push. We can't allow our public defenders to fall behind. and this parity to start to grow, because that's what happened last time. And quite frankly, it got away from the legislature. It got away from everybody. And we had a hell of a hard time getting this. It wasn't easy work. And I think another thing Representative Frazier can attest to, but it comes down to the partnerships, the work that Alfreda Daniels is doing from within. You know, we pushed hard for that seat on the Board of Public Defense, because it's virtually impossible sometimes to change things from the outside.
Yeah.
You have to change it from the inside. And I want to thank Alfreda for your voice, your strong voice, advocating for our public defenders. I thank the public defenders every day, every time I see them, for the hard work that they do. And I really thank you for your advocacy for our public defenders also. And I hope that answers your question.
It absolutely does. Representative Frazier, I know we have you for 3 more minutes. You want to take a couple minutes and just give us a summation before you go? Any closing thoughts or closing or calls to add, or whatever you would want to just leave us with before you sign off, and then
I'll kind of echo what what Ed was saying. And part of the reason we wanted to expand the board is because we wanted to make sure that there were voices on the Public Defenders Board that were close to the community that was being served, that were close to the public defenders and had an understanding of the public defenders that were doing the work. We felt like that was missing. So it was important to have that. So I'm glad to see Sister Daniels is there now, able to do that work and bring that voice and perspective to that board and talk about ways to be more engaging with the community, because I do think that's going to be something that can be really critical. When you talk about, Laurel mentioned it earlier about that, it always bothered me when folks would say you public pretenders, but I think being able to make those connections and then having real relationships built, people will see the office differently, see the work differently, and understand that, we have the resources, that the public defenders have the resources there to really do the best that they can do all the time to help to ensure that, like, again, this goes back to that people have the best possible experience when you go through the system, and all that starts with folks being treated with the humanity and decency that they should be when they go through that system. And I'll just end with this. I mean, no one should be looked down upon when they come through this system. We shouldn't judge people by the mistakes they've made on their worst day. We have a system. We should have a system that can see you for who you are. See you for the humanity and the human being that you are. And I always say accountability has its place. And to me, it's always about the then what. And as a society, I think we always do terrible with the then what. As a country, we are the greatest in the world of locking people up. We are not the greatest in the world of providing the opportunities for people to actually be rehabilitated and then provide a pathway back into the community so they can do well. And to me, that's the kind of system I want here for us, not only in the state of Minnesota, but in America. I want a system that says if you made a mistake and the state can prove that you made that mistake and then you're held accountable, then we need to ensure that after you're held accountable, that we're providing you all the resources you need to do better and not have to go back into the system at all, and not to see your kids go into it, and not to see other folks, loved ones in your community go back into the system. And that's the kind of system I want to see built. That's why we pushed the bill to have more people on the board like Alfreda. That's why we're pushing to make sure we have the resources that we need to keep the parity with the prosecutors in public defenders. And that's when we're going to continue to keep pushing those types of things. And the way you all can help that is to continue to push us, keep showing up at the Capitol, keep showing up to talk to your legislators, and keep letting us know what you need, and keep pushing us to ensure that we have in front of mind that we need to make sure that we're taking care of public defenders so that we have a system that works for everybody the same way, inclusively for everybody.
Absolutely love it. And thank you so much for authoring that bill. And pushing and making it. I actually had a front row seat to the determination that you made to really push in that session that bill and to see it get across the finishing line. And so thank you for that effort. You opened up this board to allow for more voice and more representation and the state is going to really continue to benefit, from those types of efforts. And thank you, Representative Frazier, for the work that you do, and the work that you're going to continue doing. I support you 100%. Thank you.
Hey, and
If
I'm sorry I got to run, but if people got questions specifically for me, make sure you get them to me, and I'll get back to folks.
Before you leave, Cedrick, again, I want to thank you for your partnership. Hey, there's not many people that I would wear this, man. You see that, brother? We appreciate you, brother. We appreciate you. We love the work that you do for all public defenders and all Minnesotans, and we honor you. And thank you so much for your partnership.
I appreciate you, Ed. Appreciate it. All right, everybody.
Let me find out he got stickers now. You take care. I want to go back to you, Laurel. I think we've done a great job of humanizing the work that you all are doing. And I think that we've also hit hard on why the resources were absolutely necessary, and the personnel are absolutely necessary. I have a question for you. If public defense funding were frozen, what immediate and long-term effects would that have on your ability to effectively represent your clients? Can you share specific examples of how this could play out in real cases in real time?
Absolutely. It's just the main concern for all of us is the effects on our clients. If there was a freeze and we weren't able to hire people, and there weren't, our salaries were frozen, my main concern would be retention of younger lawyers, and also our ability to recruit people to come in and work for us, so that when we'd lost people, we wouldn't be able to fill those positions. And that just means that our caseloads are higher. I was looking at a statistic the other day about the amount of data that we are getting now on cases, because everyone's wearing a body cam and there's just so much more surveillance, which is great in so many ways. But it does mean that we have just so much more evidence that we need to review. I had a case recently, it was a contested omnibus, where it was really important to be able to hear what the officer was hearing. And to do that, I had to watch the exact same scenario from 3 different videos to be able to understand what that officer could hear. It wasn't good enough to just hear it, to just watch one video from one perspective of that officer. I needed to hear it from that audio from those 3 different spots to really be able to make the point to the judge that I needed to make. If we aren't able to fill empty positions, our ability to be able to do that kind of detailed work, to have public defenders who are able to spend more time just specializing on one area of research and being able to provide training to the rest of us on that area of research, those things kind of fall by the wayside. It's so important that we're able to just kind of get in the weeds about the law sometimes. And if you're just working like an ER doctor in a war zone, and all you're able to do is stop bleeding and never actually see the patient as a whole person because everyone's hemorrhaging out, it makes it very difficult to provide the type of care you want to really be providing for your clients. I think I love my job. My clients are the best part of it. They call me all day on Christmas and Christmas Eve, and the longer I do this job, the more they're calling, because I got a longer list of former clients. It's a wonderful position to be in, but I'm haunted sometimes that I'm afraid that, what if I'm not able to, what if I'm missing something, right? And I don't even know what that could be, but those are the things that I'm concerned about, just my ability to necessarily have access to specialized information and specialized kind of training, and then the ability to watch everything I need to watch.
Yeah, and you know, to be frank, I mean, everyone now has, you know, cameras on their phones. You know, all of that is collected into evidence. All of that needs to be reviewed. I mean, if someone is going to have a defense that is go ahead.
One other quick point about that is sometimes, like I think about Marvin's case, right? The evidence disappears, right? And if we need to go and prove that our client wasn't there, we need to do that very quickly. I need to be able to have an investigator who has room on their schedule to be able to go out and find out if my client's saying, hey, I know I wasn't there. I was at this location, and you can go and check those surveillance videos. Well, if that was 45 days ago, it's gone, you know? And so I need to be able to have investigators who are willing to, not just willing, they're always willing, I promise, they're wonderful. But the promptness of which we're able to meet those demands is really critical in situations like that.
Thank you so much. I think that you've made the argument and the case really well in terms of the absolute terrifying ramifications that would occur if we don't have a fully staffed and robust system of public defense, in which, you know, you all, I mean, the resources that you all are going to continue to need aren't going to diminish as the demands are continuously increasing. And so I think that you've made a really strong argument and, you know, really pointed to what could be a terrifying scenario. I want everyone now to take about 1 minute. And to those of you all who have posed questions inside of the chat, for whatever reason, I apologize, but my Q&A, it's not firing those up. And so I do apologize, but please know that they're going to be captured and that you all should expect some type of information to come back to you in some way. I'm pretty sure I got the support of that, right, Gus? He's saying yes.
Yeah. I'm making you the host.
Excellent. And so we're not going to have a chance to get to those questions in this particular setting, but please submit them anyway, and they will be captured. What I want everyone now to do is just to take about 1 minute, right, and give us a summation. Give us your final thoughts. Give the audience what you want to leave them with regards to the discussion that we had today, why it matters to you, why it should matter to them, and what do you think they can be doing next? So everyone, just take a moment and just give us your summary. We'll start with you, Andrea.
Yes, I want to say that it is so important that we are able to maintain the qualified, experienced staff that we have. The support staff that we have, they work so closely with the attorneys, and as Laura was saying, watching all of the video, reading all of the reports that come in. The attorneys are in court so often, and they rely so heavily on the support staff to help them identify the things that are very, very pertinent and important in their cases. And we don't want to lose the institutional knowledge that we have. We have a huge team in my district and so many people who've been there so long. And honestly, I think that some of the support staff help train the newer attorneys when they're coming in on what to look for and what things are important. They're baby attorneys, you know, and
nothing more important than
and they rely very, very heavily on their support staff to even lead them and guide them on, well, what do I do? Do I need an investigator for this? Do I need a paralegal for that? So they do lean very heavily on us, and it's just, I don't want us to lose the quality and the knowledge that we have.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. We have about 6 minutes, so I want to now go to you, Donovan. Can you give us a summation? Thank you so much, Andrea.
Yeah, for me, it just goes back to a couple of foundational things. One is obviously the constitutional piece. We are constitutionally bound, and in this day and age, we need to understand that on a whole different level, and that includes the public defender office. And then two, I think we need to, particularly from the standpoint of support, need to understand. Again, I'm going back to that quote. We are a crime fighting, if you will, organization as well. And when you think of parity and equaling, I think if we're going to get the support financially, we continually have to be seen as an equal to corrections, law enforcement, prosecution, all those different things to get the support. And typically and historically, we're not seen as that because we're the public defenders, the public pretenders emphasize caseloads, hard work, all these different things. But I think there needs to be, as there is growing in our nation, a paradigm shift as to who we are. And I think once our legislators or powers that be understand us as an essential agency that is all about all these different public safety things, I think we'll get the support that we need, at least equally to other agencies such as corrections, law enforcement, prosecution, judges, on and on.
Thank you so much, Donovan. Board Member Alfreda.
Hi, I am just grateful to be here. I have been doing a lot of listening than talking because I honestly believe everything that's being discussed here. I think that we really need to take into consideration our role as board members is not there because we have all the answers, but because we should be available to listen in spaces like this. So I'm really thankful for the opportunity. I was hoping to get more questions from community members, but one actually captured my attention about local offices being available in different spaces in Minnesota. That's another great idea. So again, like I said, I'm just thankful to be here to listen, and some of these discussions will definitely be taken back to my colleague for deeper discussion. So
you can see I can't even see the questions, Alfred. It's so frustrating.
Oh, I've been digging. Okay,
I can't see them though. And so, but I'm glad that you got a chance to see that one and that you did respond. I saw that one before it disappeared from my view. So I'm glad you did get a chance. Someone raised up a really good point around, making sure that there's accessibility for outstate Minnesota. So I'm glad the board member got a chance to see that and to address that. Laurel.
I think that, in a world where we talk a lot about public safety, I would just like to chime in into what Donovan had said here, where we are part of public safety. Because when you have a robust public defense system, this is something that law enforcement talks about all the time of we've got to do these things because we know their public defender is going to do blah, 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 and they're going to challenge this. And they might kind of resent it, but every year I go in and train. I spend probably 3 or 4 hours with a big group of state trooper cadets, and I'm brought in there to train them because it's so important for them to understand what we're doing, and that makes them better cops, right? And so the role that we're playing isn't just representing people, but it's also providing a check on a robust public defender system provides a great check on public safety, because we don't want people convicted that are the wrong person. If Marvin Haynes is sitting in prison, it means the person that actually murdered that man is out free on the street. And that's a public safety issue. So this is a safety issue for all of us. And our role is truth seeking and making sure that mercy exists, that my clients are treated like humans and not just defined by their worst moment, and that we're all here wanting everybody to do better, and we're raising the bar.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Laurel. And then Edward, we have about 1 minute. Edward, go ahead and take us home.
Real quick, conversations with legislators. Continue those conversations. Know the issues. Know how they vote on the issues that impact you all. Get involved. I mean, we have Lobby Day next week. For those of you that signed up for Lobby Day and will be at Lobby Day, you have the opportunity to ask the governor yourself.
How can people sign up for the Lobby Day?
So we've already had the sign up process and it's closed at this point.
Got it.
And unfortunately, because we schedule these meetings with legislators, and in this case, we're also going to have the governor there. And so the people that did sign up, they're going to have an opportunity to ask the governor a question. That doesn't happen very often, that you're able to get the governor to attend an issue like this, or an event like this, should I say. But we do. We have the partnership with the governor's office also. But continue those conversations with your legislators, know how they're voting on the issues, hold them accountable, and let's get this done. Thank you.
Phenomenal. Thank you all so much. And thank you to all of the attendees that, spent time with us in these evening hours. To me, it's one of the most critical, pressing issues of our day. And that is our system of public defense, the last line of defense. It's what prevents a democracy from sliding into tyranny. And so I really appreciate all of the work that our public defenders do. I appreciate all of you panelists for coming and sharing your wisdom and your time with us today. And again, everyone, thank you. Thank you for everything and all of the work that all of you all are doing. I am certainly here to be a supporter and your greatest cheerleader and your biggest advocate in whatever ways that I can be, and I'll continue to be. And so thank you so much. Thank you, Gus, for putting on this presentation. Signing off. Thank all of you all. Be well.
Thank you, Elizer.